Ohio State wraps up its spring game today at Ohio Stadium. Nathan Baird from cleveland.com, along with Stephen Means and Andrew Gillis. And this defense came into the spring already cooking. Like, had a great January and December, bringing guys back, getting Caleb Downs out of the transfer portal. This defense was loaded up at the start of the spring. Missed a couple guys because of injuries, but for the most part, they weren't like huge questions that had to be answered. But at the same time, I do think we saw some guys emerge over these 15 weeks in really important ways and really kind of help give us some definition for what this is going to look like in the fall. So, Stephen, I'll start with you. Most important thing, biggest step forward, however you want to say it, what you saw from what player on this defense this spring?
I think C.J. Hicks is ready. I think he's ready. James Laurinaitis at the beginning of the spring said consistency. Every coach, it's with him. It's consistency. It's there. Can it get consistent? Jim Knowles a year ago, I want to unleash C.J. Hicks. Well, he's got to be consistent before you unleash him. We were in there for the Saturday Student Appreciation Day practice, and it felt like he was getting unleashed in there, the way they were blitzing him and Sonny Styles, and he was flashing today as well. I think it's clicked. I think the light bulb has come on. So when you pair that with veteran Cody Simon at Mike linebacker, you pair that with Sonny Styles is coming along, you pair that with the rest of that linebacker room, which might be pretty deep this year, but I think the top 10 recruit that we've been asking, hey, what's going on with that guy for 3 years, I think the light has finally come on there. It doesn't mean he's going to be an All-American this year. It also doesn't mean he has to be an All-American this year. This team's kind of loaded, but something's there. And if it's gotten consistent might be all Big Ten level. And then let's run this back a year from now, and then let's talk about him as an All-American.
Really does seem like there was all this conversation in January and February about, well, can Sonny Styles be a will linebacker? And C.J. Hicks was like, well, hey, idiots, I am a will linebacker. I'm going to be this team's will linebacker, and it looks like he might be. Andrew, your pick.
I'm going to take a depth guy and say Jaden Bonsu at safety, because I think when you look at this team, there's a lot of guys you could take, and C.J. Hicks, I think, was going to be my pick if Steven didn't take it, if you've gone to me first. But with the safety position for Ohio State right now, you have Caleb Downs, you have Lathan Ransom. Hip, hip, hooray, that's elite. That's amazing. You've got 2 future NFL guys back there, including one pretty much lock first-round pick unless something terrible goes wrong for Caleb Downs at this point. So you're good at safety. I don't know how good you are at safety depth, and I think that was a big issue of concern for Ohio State this spring. Jim Knowles said that today when we talked to him. He talked about how big of a deal that was. And when we were standing right here before the game, and Bonsu comes out on the field, and Steven, I forget if it was you or another writer, I was like, he looks bigger. Like, he just looks the part, and he looks like he got bigger. And Ohio State, in 2025, you're going to need another safety because Lathan Ransom's not going to be here. So you're going to need somebody to play with Caleb Downs. Can that be Bonsu? Maybe. So having him there would be big. But you're probably going to need another safety at some point in 2024 because it is irresponsible to go into a season and think everyone's going to stay healthy. We're going to be fine. You saw what happened to Lathan Ransom last year, and that's a big deal. I mean, what happens if Caleb Downs does something and he's out a month in October, and all of a sudden you got to go to Happy Valley or you got to go to Oregon and you don't have Caleb Downs on the back end of your defense? That's a big deal. So getting that progression from Bonsu, I think, was really big because you need depth, and you need depth at safety, and that was a position that they were lacking, and I think he really kind of stepped up in a big way. So you added depth for this year. You may have put yourself in a position to where going into next year you're competing for a starting job. I think that this was a really nice spring for him.
I think it was a huge spring for him. And make sure you put it in context because, Ransom's been out. Malik Hartford's been out. Lorenzo Styles Jr. was out today. And I was asking Jim Knowles about this after the game in this context because that just gave a bunch of reps to other guys. But Jalen McClain had an interception today. Cedric Hawkins got some more opportunities over the spring. But Bonsu is the one whose name has come up the most. And again, try not to get too excited about it because a couple years ago it was Kai Stokes had a great spring, and then we never heard from him again, and he transferred out. But they do need depth. They had to get some security there, and I think the test of this defense, or actually, we didn't even say the test of this defense. The thing that is the most potentially intriguing about this defense is you can already see, okay, well, I'm going to take this piece out. Now what are you going to do? Well, they have an answer at like almost every spot, or they seem to anyway. We'll find out this fall. But I thought he was a hugely important guy. I'm going to mention another defensive back. Calvin Simpson-Hunt didn't play a lot last year. Obviously, he was a summer enrollee, didn't come in early the way Jermaine Matthews did. But, he had a pick today. He made some other plays. Like, it's coming on for him. He was mentioned in some conversations we had as like one of the purely fastest guys on this team. And, we saw Jermaine Matthews playing some nickel today. Like, the interchangeability that this secondary has right now gives Tim Walton and Jim Knowles a lot of opportunities. And we've been talking so much about, well, like, what if Jermaine Matthews is ready and like that third cornerback is there and now you can rotate, and we're like, okay, well, now what if Calvin Simpson-Hunt's ready and now you've got 4 corners and you can mix them in more, and it helps you take some of the wear and tear off of Denzel Burke and Davis Igbinosun, especially him, considering how hard he plays. Both those guys are pretty physical. Like, if you can start to mix those other 2 guys in, not only are you keeping those other 2 guys ready for the game and into December, you're building those guys up to be the guys next year, to be the dudes, and you can make a seamless transition, which Ohio State has not been able to do a cornerback in like ever. I don't remember the last time they could really make a seamless transition. Yeah, like 2017, because like even 2019, Arnett and Okuda leave, and then Sean Wade moves from nickel to outside, but that didn't work that great, and there was nobody on the other side. You could just pass both torches like to these other 2 guys, and then by the way, Scott and West coming in behind them, more corners coming in with this next recruiting class. Like, they are really setting up to have a wave here, and I think Simpson Hunt gave some indication that he's part of it, and it might be here this season, this fall. A lot more talk about what we saw from this defense all spring on Buckeye Talk. Get that wherever you can find podcasts. And get the text 614-350-3315. All the news and everything that's going to be happening here, not only post-spring but on into the summer, coming to you right to your phone from cleveland.com.